Alright guys, TacticalRab here, and today hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Further Rostermania rumours are coming to light, especially with regard to what the Vegas Legion are planning to do next year. We know Donny Temp's going to be there. What is the rest of the roster? Apparently, some new names are getting thrown into the hat. And also, is it possible, given what we've seen over the last couple of weeks or so, the crowd can actually be joining the Los Angeles Thieves after all? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to discuss as per usual today. Firstly, wanted to mention this from Pred. This is kind of one of the big topics lately, is because the guys like Scump are eventually going to retire within a couple of years, you would imagine. Crim, Clay, all the big personalities are moving on. Now, what does that mean for the future of the CDL? Like, what is the viewership going to be? Are there any other personalities that can actually carry the league on their back in a sense? Now, to some degree, I think the OpTic guys will certainly help with that. Dashy, Shotzzy, iLLeY, like these guys definitely can, do that to some degree. But I think, thankfully, at least over the last year or so, it's not like we've got personalities like Scump and Clay and Crim that have arrived on the scene and are really making their mark. But at least we've got players with, some personality and some interest factor behind them. Pred is certainly one of them. Drazah, I think, is another one. Even Scrappy, right, when he's in the league next year, he's going to be a fun player to watch. So good to see Pred starting up his YouTube channel. He's getting ready to go. And also, I believe he's up for nomination for his play up against FaZe at the World Championship for August's Player of the Month here. Now, of course, there are many good players. It's always difficult for me because I can watch some of these players from games like Counter-Strike and stuff, and I get a good idea as to, okay, how good actually was that play compared to a normal, good, solid player at that level. And obviously, Pred's one was one of the best ones of the entire season. But then I watch plays from, Rocket League and stuff, and I really have no idea. Is that actually, is that, a top 1% of all-time play? Is that, something that happens every tournament? I don't really know if I don't watch the esport necessarily. But Pred is at least up for nomination here, which I thought was pretty cool as well, on the esports awards stuff that they do every month, I believe, at this point. This also to mention from Hitch. We don't know exactly what's going on here, because I know that he's mentioned the last few days that he gets rather frustrated trying to put these throwback tournaments on, because he puts all this work into doing it, tries to reach out to the pro players and make it happen, and then the pros either don't take it so serious, or they respond and say they'll do it, and then actually it turns out they're busy. I can imagine that's an absolute nightmare, right? Some of these pros, I'm sure they say one thing and then do a completely different thing when push comes to shove on the day of the tournament. And as Hitch says, I think he's mentioned that he's kind of been a bit frustrated with it and doesn't quite get the rewards that he would like to have. But as he says, he's been working on something for a really long time that he can finally announce. So, we'll see what exactly this comes out to be, whether it's anything Call of Duty related, who really knows. Crone says, look, please do a World Cup, and he's like, look, that'd have to be a CDL thing, but he would love to run it. I'll throw a Hail Mary here soon and see if anything comes of it. So maybe implying that there's something COD related coming for Hitch. I know that he wanted to do a Cold War throwback tourney or something, but we might have to wait a little bit longer for that. Hopefully the pros can agree at least to do some sort of throwback tournament this off-season. Would be a good time for sure. This also real quick from the Rokkr, because they at Boston reach and say that loading bar stuck, because Boston have been teasing announcements for quite some time at this point, and nothing really as of yet has actually come to fruition, and they haven't confirmed anything as of recording. By the time this video goes live, it's possible that they confirmed and announced everything, but they'll probably leave it until after the World Series of Warzone stuff. But did want to shout out Boston really as an organization, because since they came in, they've done some great things, right? They're really pushing forwards. The Boston brand, I think, is great. They've got loads of great things going on. This whole mask thing they've got is pretty cool as well. They need to come out with these on for one of their matches at the start of next season or something, but they're actually putting on a LAN at their kind of Helix Esports venue there in Boston, pretty close to their Patriots Stadium or whatever is there, in very close vicinity. But yeah, 7k prize pool November the 19th, so Modern Warfare 2 LAN, they're putting on 32 teams. That's going to be a good one to watch. So good to see these organizations arriving and really trying to push the scene forwards to some degree. Of course, some organizations names will not be mentioned, even though they will be in just a few minutes time here for other reasons, of organizations that maybe haven't really tried so hard to do the best they possibly can for the scene. This also denotes here, as Specy points out, that it was pretty cool, as Awakening mentions. I guess I put it on the big screen for you guys. So yeah, here we go. Awakening says, excited for Modern Warfare 2. Many players and individuals liking this one, and interestingly enough, we've got Zed and Denz both liking this tweet. Very coincidental, of course, because Zed, of course, the head coach for the Boston Breach, and Denz, the general manager of that roster. So yes, that is going to be the team. Is it a massively upgraded squad minus Awakening, or plus Awakening minus TJ, with the rest of the team staying together? I think that's definitely a question. I think they might get better by 5-10%. I'm not sure they get massively better, especially because I think other teams are probably upgrading around them. They're still going to have a difficult time being, a qualification for the World Championship, I would say. I think it's pretty competitive for that final World Championship qualification spot this year. And one player that, of course, will want to be there this time around is Clayster. Didn't get to go last year. The last couple of seasons, it's been pretty tough for Clay, honestly. Finally breaking his streak, I suppose, on attending World Championships in multi-million-dollar tournaments throughout his history. But I mean, yeah, this, of course, the legendary team, the FaZe Clan team for back in the day. Thought it was interesting because people were looking at this kind of reminiscing when the players used to have jerseys with the name on the back, which doesn't really seem to be the case nowadays, unfortunately. But yeah, there's been some talk about what the Vegas Legion are planning to do. Next season, of course, they're going to go in with an entirely new roster. Temp is going to be their guy they decided to build around. Theory's staying as the coach. They've got like another guy that works for the organization, and then there's the owner. There's 4 people that are actually there at that organization now, and look, they're looking to bring some more on, at least in terms of players. Now, TJ, I believe, is probably the main target for like their kind of one of their SMG roles. I think Temp has made it rather clear that he doesn't really want to team anymore with all these younger guys because, like, what Paris did last year, for example, even the year before, they just bring in players from challengers that should be good, and like just chuck them together and hope it works. And it's like, well, often you need like a leader to mold these guys to a certain extent, like bringing in Johnny and Jimbo and all this. Like, you're gonna get a bit of a weird team dynamic where, okay, the team might have some talent on it, but it's never really going to be a team, right? The chemistry isn't necessarily going to be there. And Temper said, look, I don't really want to team with guys like that. I want to team with guys with a bit more experience and like guys that I'm pretty confident we can work together with and build a better team culture. And maybe it's fine to have one of those guys in the team, but when you start having 2 or 3 of them in the team, then that's when you get the Temp images that come out when he's just like, oh my god, these guys, what are they doing? Hands on his head, like talking about the cobs and like telling them to shut up in the middle of listenings and stuff. Bit of a mess. So hopefully this new season that doesn't happen anymore. So I believe Temp wants TJ, and I saw actually like a screenshot a while ago where they were talking about maybe wanting Havok. Of course, Havok was an unrestricted free agent, but like unfortunately for them, Havok was probably too high a priority for some teams than for Paris to get the chance, or Vegas as they are now, Vegas Legion, to pick them up. So Havok ended up going to the Florida Mutineers, we believe, in getting snagged by them. That's the thing with Vegas. They're probably not going to want to pay a buyout, so players like aBeZy from Los Angeles Guerrillas are maybe off the table, depending on if their wallet is somehow deeper this season than it has been previously. My guess is they're going to want to get unrestricted players because there are many options out there, of course. So let's say Temp and TJ is the starting point. They're going to need an AR, theoretically, and I still imagine Clay is going to be that guy. I can't really see, like, Clay isn't going to get on another team at this point. We believe he wanted to go to Boston, and then they kind of struck him along and told him he was going to be able to go there. Then they chose Methods instead. Clay wasn't so happy about it. So, like, and now Clay's looking for another opportunity. But, like, what other ARs would Vegas get? Because I think they're going to need an AR. Like, you're not really going to want Temp on a main AR, or you're not going to want to bring in Gunless and have, like, who's your main in that sense. I think it makes way more sense to get Clay here. Just like a solid, consistent AR that can get the best out of the other players if things go well. Yes, there's some risk. Yes, there's some downside, but I think it's worth giving it a go, to be honest. So, like, what other options are there instead of Clay? You've got General, you've got Assault, you've got, like, Gravity, but obviously, like, they're not going to want to run it back with Gravity and Temp next season, otherwise they could have already decided to do that. So I feel like out of the options, like, unless you're going to get a flex player that can then run an AR or something, kind of what Minnesota Rokkr have done, then probably Clay is the number one guy. So I'm expecting Clay to come through. I would be surprised if he doesn't. Like, of course, Crim is the other player in consideration here, right? But I feel like Clay is kind of more willing to just play in the league no matter what, whereas Crim is probably thinking, well, if they're not going to pay me 200, 300 grand, then it's just not going to happen. And if there's other complications that come along with that, Crim lives in Texas. We believe Vegas are going to have, I think Temp indicated there might be some sort of team house going on actually in Vegas, which would be incredible if a Legion actually managed to do that. Whether it's going to be a new region, same Legion, that of course remains to be seen. But yeah, so Clay, Temp and TJ is what I imagine is going on. Now, the final SMG player is a bit of a question mark, but this name has definitely been popping up as of late and may well be a viable one. So this just came out a couple of days ago from Joe Deceives doing a $300 pot chow with TJ, Temp and Capsidal. So is this going to be the trio joining an AR? Because I actually rather like it. I feel like if there's one player right now that it could be a solid SMG player that isn't kind of locked up somewhere, Capsidal could be that guy. I feel like he was not exactly underrated on Boston. He was very good at the start. He was arguably Boston's best player at their start of the season, especially in Search and Destroy. As time went on, Capsidal maybe wasn't quite as impactful as they thought he could be, and maybe he needs a little bit more time still to develop. But I feel like we all saw the talent in Capsidal at the start of the season. They eventually decided to drop him for Vivid, right? Vivid was coming through. I imagine they discussed a fair bit internally. Okay, should we drop Capsidal? Should we drop Nero? They went for Capsidal in the end. I think it was probably the right call at the time, but I still feel like there's more to come from Cap. I think we saw the talent in him, and maybe just a little bit more, someone could bring that talent out of him, and maybe Clay could be that guy, right? Like, I feel like that's why it's beneficial, because, okay, Theory's been the coach of this team the last few years, but, it doesn't really seem to me that he's really extracted that much potential out of some of the players they've had on the roster. roster, and maybe Clay could be a key guy to do that. So what do you guys think about that potential team of TJ, Temp, Capsidal plus Clayster? I think it's an interesting one, right? And I do feel like Cap would be a good option because he's one of these players where he's still relatively new, still got a lot to learn and a lot to potentially improve on. But Temp is probably thinking, well, this guy at least had to go 1 year in the league. He's had, well, maybe like half a season really on the Boston team. So he's not an absolute rookie. He knows what it takes. He's won his fair share of matches on LAN, online, all this type of stuff. And if you look at his numbers here, especially in Search and Destroy over the season, very impressive actually. Like one of the highest kills per round in Search and Destroy in the entire league. A great first blood record as well, given his aggression and the amount of engagements he gets into. So these are impressive numbers, right? And it's the same thing with Florida Mutineers. If Paris want to be like a respectable team, they're going to have to be solid in the respawns, but also very good at search, right? That's how Paris and Florida and these teams get results, is by winning their game 5s. And Capsidal might be a key piece of being able to do that. So definitely intrigue your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about that roster? The other thing I just wanted to mention is this, because of course there was a party that went down the other day. We've got Nadeshot, we've got Shane here, JCap, Modok in the background. We've got some of the boys. I guess it looks like Drazah a little bit here, but Octane and Abel, and I don't know who this lad is on the right, unfortunately, but he's looking pretty fresh. But obviously you can see on the left hand side here we've got Crowder, right? Now Crowder with 100 Thieves, they kind of go way back to a certain extent, back to the Black Ops 4 days, but it is interesting at the least that Crowder is here with all the COD boys effectively, and then Crowder's just kind of chilling along for the ride as well. Now of course we saw relatively recently that Crowder was effectively saying to aBeZy, Paul and the guys at FaZe that yes, he's going to stay. And if you look at his bio now, actually Atlanta FaZe is now back in the bio, so we expect him to stay on FaZe and be either not necessarily the head coach, but either in an assistant or kind of consultancy coach role where he's involved to some degree. But some were speculating, like, is there a possibility Crowder goes to Thieves? Like, does he come back to that organization? If they offer him a lot of money, then would he turn that opportunity down? Because, JCap, Shane, Crowder, I mean, that would be an absolutely stacked coaching lineup, and they probably don't need Crowder necessarily because Shane seemed to bring them what they were missing, like the other side of what JCap doesn't necessarily provide, because every coach is going to have their strengths and weaknesses. So definitely tweet your thoughts on that one. And just this to mention as well, because I'm not sure if Phoenix was watching our podcast last night, but on the Breaking Point podcast, we were discussing coaches and like how difficult it is to really determine if a coach is good or bad or not. And Phoenix tweeted this out around the same time, so it might be completely coincidental, but it was interesting just because we were talking about coaches like Crowder and Rambo and these guys that have had great success, but like how do you know if they're actually any good or not because they get good results? You can only really tell a good coach maybe if a team that's, if a team becomes more than the sum of its parts. And I thought this was interesting just because, even looking at a guy like Crowder or Rambo or whatever, right, like if the team chemistry doesn't go so well, then, is that an indictment on them as a coach? You could argue it is, even if the results are good. So it's an interesting one. But like when people are rating coaches like all time, people go for, as it stands, Crowder, Rambo, these guys were at the top of the list because they won world championships with their team. But how much was it on them? How much was it on the team? That's why it's just tough to be a coach, right? Because you get all the blame sometimes when the team loses, but then you get basically no credit when they win. So that's maybe why some of these coaches want to go to other rosters and other organizations. Just a couple of things to finish out with here. Firstly, this on the COD League, let us know. First thing that comes to mind when you hear the word comeback. For me, I think, firstly, comeback uplink. What a great map from Advanced Warfare. The other comebacks that, obviously in recent memory, there's good ones like the Rokkr versus Ultra thing. The one that still comes to mind, I think, is Infinite Warfare, United versus Envy. The uplink comeback on Precincts, like that always will stick in the minds. And I think the Full Sail as well, you can't really beat that one from back in the Black Ops 2 days, Complexity versus OpTic. So those are the ones that come to mind for me, but definitely let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Just to mention this as we close out the video, what a fantastic thumbnail Roosevelt put together here, but every winning major moment in the COD Ghost season is now live on the YouTube channel. We got some ones from Krim, the X Games of course, and then Doug won an event that season at Nashville. Not looking quite like this, but it was still pretty funny anyway. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.